welcome back. And if you've not been here before, God help you. Right, I wanted to do a video tonight because in my previous video on Sunday night, I may have inadvertently told you a couple of fibs.
He's a very naughty boy!
I told you that methane levels had reached their peak 2 weeks earlier due to the data, and were now concentrations were falling. And I also told you that the Antarctic ozone hole was very large, and according to CAM's forecast, that had started to shrink back down again. I'm extremely sorry, I do apologise, but it does appear that both of my reports were inaccurate. So let's begin with methane. I put some of the latest data into an easy to follow chart, and I did my report on Sunday night from Saturday the 10th figures, which are in green, which I calculated my averages from. And sometimes I do a quick midweek check, and I had a look at the figures yesterday, and I couldn't believe the difference. These are each satellite, morning and afternoon, and at each level in the atmosphere. Just in the space of 3 days, 5 parts per billion increase. Over there, there's 3, there's another 5, a 3, another 5, and a 4, and a 4. So the highest increase at 300 millibars. The METOP 1 AM satellite went up by 9 parts per billion in 3 days. The average of both satellites morning and afternoon was 5.2 parts per billion. The average overall gives an increase of 3.15 parts per billion. And for the 931 up to 300, where I base one of my graphs off to find the average, we're now back up to 0.1 parts per billion higher than the peak on September the 25th, 6th, sorry. So what's going on? Is this the result of a volatile atmosphere, or has a methane burst gone off somewhere? So I checked on CAMS to see if I could find any evidence of any large outbreaks, outbursts of methane on the planet. Here I've just gone back to the 12th global views, surface levels, and I'll just play it. As you can see, there's lots of methane worldwide. Lots in South America, southern Chile. Some in California, that may be a sign of an impending earthquake. Alaska. Lots and lots in Europe and Siberia. Africa, southern Africa. Indonesia. But India is now getting as bad as China. This is probably pollution. And if I was to put my finger on what's causing high methane levels, I'd point my finger here at India. It does seem to be quite black around Bangladesh. I don't know if the recent flooding's causing lots of methane to be released. Now, I think this is what I showed you on my last video. The ozone Antarctic hole. First time Sunday the 11th Antarctic total column, and I played in it, and it showed you what it was like, and then what it was forecasted to do. And see, it was forecast to smaller and smaller, filling in nicely. Oh, nothing to worry about, apart from it being one of the biggest holes in the last 15 years or so. Or I can go through now day by day and show you exactly what's happened. So on the 12th, it looked like that. And on the 13th, looked like that. And on the 14th, that. And now the most recent image, it's actually got bigger. Here's the very latest view of the Northern Hemispheric jet stream, if you can call it that. If you've not seen these yet, well, you may or may not be interested in these latest sea ice graphs by Zach Labe. This is the Arctic sea ice, and it's now tracking record minimums for the time of the year. I think they did a little bit of geoengineering myself round about here to slow it down. Made them little ice balls in the ocean. That sea ice has totally flatlined. There is zero ice in the Laptev Sea at all, and possibly never ever will be ever again. Geoengineering didn't work. They tried it there again at the same time. That's the same time. Last week of July. Hang on. Where are we? Last week of July. Geoengineering trials. Right. Siberian Arctic. This is off the northern coast of Siberia. What's the ice doing there? Well, it's nearly fucking zero. And look, last week of July, it went up. So the whole Arctic froze up naturally in the last week of July. I don't think so. I think somebody's been playing about with naughty chemicals. Now, I've tried to find out some more information on the Kamchatka disaster last week, where all the seafloor marine life got killed. This is from the Moscow Times, 16 hours ago. Just keeps getting worse. Large oil slick discovered on Russia's Volga River. The Volga River slick is at least a second oil spill reported in Russia this week. I'll just read through it fast. An oil slick the size of a hockey rink has been discovered on the Volga River north of Moscow, authorities said Wednesday, the latest instance of pollution to hit Russia's waterways this year. The 5,000 square metre layer of fuel was spotted near the port of Kimry, some 150 kilometres north of the Russian capital, Moscow. Moscow transport investigators said in a statement. The discharge of petrochemical products from a vessel currently being identified has presumably occurred, it said, on the opposite end of the Volga River, more than 1,000 kilometres to the south. Residents of the city of Volgograd were reported to have found hundreds of dead catfish washed up onto the shore of a local reservoir. They linked it to poachers discarding small fish. Whatever. The Volga River slick is at least the second oil spill reported this week and comes less than 5 months after a massive diesel fuel tank leak in the Arctic city of Norilsk, triggered by melting permafrost. Haven't I talked about Norilsk before? The oil spill discovery also comes amid continuing questions over what caused the mass die-off of sea creatures, including seals, octopuses, octopi, starfish and sea urchins in the Far East Kamchatka region last month. Scientists said the event, increasingly believed to be caused by toxins from microalgae known as algal bloom, wiped out up to 95% of seabed life. The governor of the Kamchatka region said this week that scientists and witnesses reported seeing more dead marine animals washing up to the shore south of the initial discoverer. He suggested the mass die-off was linked to climate change and other polluting effects on the Pacific Ocean. Greenpeace Russia said Wednesday that none of the compounds found in water samples could have caused the serious consequences we're observing. This means that both man-made and natural theories remain in the search for the cause of the environmental disaster, the organisation said. So that's what was reported as what Greenpeace said. So I've checked on the Russian Greenpeace page to see what they actually did say, what wasn't reported. In samples of sea, river water and biomaterials, mollusks and crabs, by the laboratory of the IC Kimtest Mendeleev, components of petroleum fractions, fatty acids and esters, chlorine-containing and some other compounds were found. Chemical Analytical Center arbitration on the basis of FSUEVNIIM D. Mendeleev, using various methods, discovered diallyl sulfide in water samples, which may include, among other things, the composition of biopesticides as well as compounds of the terpene group, derivatives of fatty acids and hexaethyl glycol. How the hell is anything supposed to survive that? Also in the samples, the presence of a number of metals was established, including compounds of mercury, boron, vanadium, selenium at the maximum permissible concentration. No cyanides or organochlorine pesticides have been identified. Studies of samples for the presence of propellant components, heptyl, and other indicators have not yet been completed. The results of other studies, including using other methods, including those from other laboratories, are also expected. You've got to wear a biohazard now to have a trip to the beach. A biohazard suit. To date, none of the compounds identified in the samples from government agencies or Greenpeace alone or in the concentrations detected could cause the observed serious consequences. This means that in the search for the cause of the ecological catastrophe, both versions remain both technogenic and natural. The research and sampling program continues as no version explains what happened to date. This article's longer than the last one. I was going to skip a few bits, but I think it's worth reading. From the very beginning of its response to the events from Kamchatka, the Russian branch of Greenpeace has been trying to establish the causes of the ecological catastrophe, which manifested itself primarily in the large-scale extinction of benthic organisms. For this, sample analyses were ordered from several laboratories. The study of the versions previously voiced by the authorities and organisations is still ongoing. The possible ingress of pesticides, including from the Kozelsk test site, rocket fuel or oxidizer into the water, the discharge of harmful substances from ships, the impact of hazardous substances buried on the ocean floor. Well, we know they used the sea as a dumping ground for all sorts of chemicals and nuclear waste, as well as a version of volcanic and other geothermal activity. A version related to massive algal blooms is also being investigated. Possible reasons for this bloom include inter alia anthropogenic nutrient inputs and climate change. In the process of searching for the causes of what happened in Kamchatka, a number of dangerous objects were discovered, which, if not now, then in the future, may cause new environmental problems in the region. Dangerous objects? We'll never know what they are, they'll never tell us. Regardless of the results of the research, the regional and federal authorities should start implementing a program to eliminate the accumulated environmental damage in the Kamchatka territory. It is necessary to identify and verify all known sources of possible intake of pollutants and to prevent damage to the unique nature in the future. Should we be shocked at these mass die-offs? Yes. Should we be surprised? No. The Russians have been using the ocean as a dumping ground for decades, and now we're seeing the results. Now, I also wanted to have a look at the mess we've created at the Great Barrier Reef, and so I've gone to Pledge Times, which I think is an Australian news site. It's a bit more local to the area. From the 14th, global warming rings alarm bell over half of coral population of Great Barrier Reef is over. Over and out. Melbourne. More than half of the coral population of Australia-based the Great Barrier Reef has been depleted in the last 3 decades. The Great Barrier Reef is the largest coral reef or coral reef in the world. The study report related to this has been published in the journal Proceedings of the Royal Society. B. Scientists have said that the rising sea temperature has affected the coral reef. Well, we know this already. You've probably seen the horrible news reports during the past week about 50% of it's gone in the last 25 years. But it's, according to this, it's actually a lot worse. 50% of the population is over. Pity we can't say that about humans. It said that the study assessed its population and size in the world's largest coral reef area between 1995 and 2017 and found that the number of small, medium and large corals has declined over this period. They said that we found that more than 50% of small, medium and large corals in the Great Barrier Reef have been eroded since the 1990s. This was 3 years ago. So you can bet it's got a hell of a lot worse since. Australian tourism is a great source. So is Worcester sauce. I love it. On my cheese on toast. The research co-author and James Cook University professor Terry Hughes said that the number of corals in the Great Barrier Reef has decreased by, wait for it, 80 to 90% compared to 25 years ago. So there's only between a fifth and a tenth of it left. And that was 3 years ago. This reef, spread over 2,300 kilometres, gives Australia a tourism revenue of $4 million every year. They'd be lucky to get 4 fucking cents a year for it soon, because they'd be totally gone. There'd be nothing there at all. This amount was considered the backbone of the Australian economy before the coronavirus epidemic. But hey, Sport, let's open up some more them coal mines. Yay! Why the hell did I just sound like a Texan when I'm trying to do an Aussie accent? It's late at night. Sorry. Do you ever wonder you're just a brain in a box, creating your own reality?
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Astronomers are warning a newly discovered asteroid is on a collision course with Earth. The latest Hubble observations estimate its diameter at about 500 kilometres. It also appears to have 2 craters and a semicircular ridge, resembling a smiley face. 2020 WASF is expected to impact the planet on New Year's Day 2021, getting the new year off to a bang. Well, while the ozone levels are so depleted, I thought I'd pop back over to CAMS and look at the UV forecast for the ultraviolet light penetration. That looks to me like they might be inadvertently, accidentally forecasting something else. Oh. I'm going to leave you now with a little bit of hopium. Not for us. We've had it, and most of everything else on the earth going with us. But a little bit of hopium that in the far future, a couple of the species that may survive may thrive and adapt and evolve into more intelligent creatures than what we are. And they might actually coexist with each other and and do wonderful things and populate the universe. And with that thought, thank you very much for watching. I love you all. Not long left now. Goodbye.